this guy, we got him as a write-in. We didn't have anybody file for Attorney General, and I recruited him, so I'm really proud to say that. He got his start. He was a debate champion from Phillips Exeter. Then he went to Harvard, and while he was on the debate team, he earned his bachelor's degree in physics. Then, like Mitt Romney, he earned both his law degree and his MBA at the same time from an Ivy League school. Mitt did his from Harvard, James did his at Yale. Despite that kind of education, he's been fighting for individuals so that they can protect their own property rights. He was instrumental in saving the dams on the Columbia and the Snake River. He wrote a book called The Great Salmon Hoax. They just love him up there, the irrigators, because he doesn't take no for an answer. He goes after them. And he is so exciting. I think, and you come up and tell me afterwards, I think he's the most dynamic speaker, strong conservative we have running in the entire country. So give it up for James Buchal for Attorney General.
Well, that's a difficult introduction to live up to if you're as boring and monotonous a speaker as I am. I am a lawyer. I've labored away in the fields of law in Portland for 20 years here, and I've become quite depressed at the prospect of what has happened to the rule of law. And I was sitting in my office, and Lisa called me up, well, we need a candidate for Attorney General. No. Well, we need a candidate for Attorney General. No. Finally, they persuaded me to run, and I agreed to do it. Why would I do something like that? Well, this is it, folks. This is the end. We are in the end stages of the American civilization unless we can turn this thing around. What does it mean? What does it mean when a government, out of every dollar it spends, is printing 40% out of thin air? It means we're near the end of Western civilization. We're near the end of the rule of law. We're at that point where we have to choose that historic path between going down the way of the Roman Republic and having a dictator, Hail Obama or whatever, or restoring the Constitution, that thing that if we had just paid attention to it, instead of ripping it to shreds, would have prevented every ill that we are now suffering. Yeah! Now, of course, as the Attorney General, there's not much you can do about cowardly Supreme Court justices and meat puppet congressmen who get these laws and vote for them without reading them and who don't seem to give a damn about the Constitution. But you can do things inside the state of Oregon. Now, I could give you a very partisan speech about this, but I don't want to give you a very partisan speech about this. I want to suggest that there's some bipartisan and neutral virtues that we as Republicans ought to be able to sell to anyone, even if we don't have any particular sales skills at all. I will offer you 3 themes for what we must sell in these next 40 days. Theme number 1, accountability. Everybody is sick of the fact that we have an elite class in this country that is robbing it blind, and that is happening on a federal level, and that is happening on a state level. We now have a Federal Reserve that has gone berserk and has decided to pay out $40 billion a month buying up toxic garbage from banks that don't like what they invested in anymore. And instead they want to stick it to us. We have a Federal Reserve that thinks they should set the interest rate at 0. You know what that means? No one can ever afford to retire again because you can't earn any money on your retirement income. And the people in their 50s and their 60s who want to retire, they have to keep working, so there's no jobs for the young people. We have lunatics in control of the macroeconomic levers of this nation. They are driving us into the ground. Simplicity has no constituency. Complexity has a constituency. We have armies and armies of government officials out there promulgating complexity. It's almost like cancer. I like to say we have cancer. The cancer is government, and it's killing us. They are multiplying like cells and cells say when the agency comes in and says, oh, we have a violator here. Look, he violated section 4752, sub A, sub 2, sub 4, sub 5, sub 6, sub C. And I'd like to say to the agency, well, I'm not going to enforce that. That agency rule is not as simple as clear as possible. We have got to simplify things. Oregon business is drowning in red tape. We are choking to death in government. It is everywhere. It is armies of officials. It is like the times of King George. He has sent forth a swarm of officials to eat out our substance. We're right back where we started in the Declaration of Independence. These are things that everybody understands. Now, what else do people understand? People understand that it doesn't make sense to have 4 or 5 or 10 or 15 agencies in charge of the same thing. I used to represent the Northwest Aluminum Company down the road here. I used to represent a lot of the companies, and I watched as the 13 agencies in charge of salmon recovery destroyed the economic backbone of the Columbia River Valley. Think about it. We have this wonderful system out here, this fantastic dam that has no fuel costs. We should have the cheapest electricity anywhere. We should have good family wage jobs, melting metal and pouring metal and milling metal. And instead, what do we have? We have billion-dollar subsidies for Indian tribes to go out and plant little trees that die a year later. This is madness. It is madness. You know, in Oklahoma, where they have to dig coal out of the ground and then run it on a railway car hundreds of miles and then put it in a coal plant and then burn it and then spend all this money on pollution control, the electricity is cheaper there. We have a government cancer that is killing us, and we have got to begin fighting back and restoring the economic backbone of the Pacific Northwest, which brings me to my third theme, decentralization. Now, decentralization is something that is sort of, it's a big word, you know, people might not understand it, so if you're explaining it to one of your Democrat friends, you might say, have you ever seen the detective movie where you've got the cops, and the cops are working very diligently to solve this murder, and in walks Mr. FBI man, well, this is my case now, and here's my team of people, and then they spend the rest of the movie fighting with each other, and as a result, the guy kills 3 more people, you know, but eventually, of course, the good guys win in the end. That is what we have now when we have the federal government and the state government and the metro government and the regional this and the regional that and the county and the state, everybody in charge of the same thing. And everybody knows this doesn't make sense. When I was litigating the salmon recovery question, I had on my wall of my office 40,000 pages of reports and coordination reports and studies and plans and programs, and you have 10 people involved, and out of those 10 people, one of them is actually doing something on the ground that's useful to anybody. Do you know that if you go back and look how much it costs to build the Brooklyn Bridge or the Holland Tunnel or the Golden Gate Bridge, and then you escalate it up for inflation because of the fact that the Federal Reserve has destroyed the value of our currency, everything we build now costs 10 times as much in real terms because we have 10 people pushing paper back and forth. Think about the Columbia River Bridge crossing, right? You know, it's like, oh, let's have a $108 million planning process about a bridge. And they plan and they plan and they hold meetings and they hold meetings and they get to the end of it and they come up with a plan where the bridge is about 51 feet shorter than every other bridge and things can't get underneath it. And so, hey, start all over again. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Bend over, you're just taxpayers. That's the way Oregon government works because we have this fantastic centralization, and people understand that. And what is one of the most important manifestations of this? I tell you what, Oregon's wealth, Oregon's great resource is its natural resources. You know, Art Robinson, who is a great candidate running down in Southwest Oregon, he likes to point out that Oregon's about the size of Switzerland. About 50 years ago, the people in Oregon and the people in Switzerland made about the same amount of money. But the difference was, Switzerland had good government, and we had bad government, and now they're light years ahead of us, even though we've got the Willamette Valley, and they've got rocks. Because it's about government. It's about government. We have got to fix the government. So, as Attorney General, what can we do about that? I've got an idea. What if we actually challenged the federal government and tried to get some of our power back? Now, we've had a lot of people who've gone up and challenged the federal government, and they have failed. They have fallen on their sword. I have an idea about that. What if we say, look, is there anything left of the states at all? Are they just useless appendages? Or do we actually have some sovereign capacity as a state to defend the health and welfare of our citizens? And I think about this as I drive up Highway 84 with my eyes watering and my throat coughing as they are burning our natural resources to the ground. They have burned $10 or $20 billion worth of state income in the last 10 or 20 years. Right up in smoke, because everybody knows that it doesn't make sense to have somebody 2,500 miles away trying to figure out how to fight a fire in the mining wilderness. I was in La Grande last week. They tell me the lightning hit a tree. Any fool with a chainsaw could have put out the fire by himself, but no, it's a wilderness area. We can't fight fires in a wilderness area. You know, we can't use a chainsaw or a bulldozer because that would disturb the wilderness character of the area. It's better to let it burn to the ground. What kind of fools think these things? The fools that are 2,500 miles away, the educated idiots. And people understand that this approach to government makes no sense. So what can we do? What can we do? I would like to see the commissioners of Wasco County and the legislature of the state of Oregon begin to pass statutes that say, hey, we are not potted plants. We are here to defend the people of the state of Oregon. We are here to protect their health. We are here to keep them from getting sick from the smoke. We are here to keep them from getting their houses burned down. If you are a large landowner, whether or not your initials are UFSS, when you're a large landowner and you let these fuel loads build up and the snags fall down and you've got huge loads that are a threat to public safety, we will go in and cut it ourselves. Now, we have sheriffs. We have to have county commissioners. We have to have sheriffs. We have to be willing to take on the federal government. Because I tell you what, a freed slave or an escaped slave, I can't remember which, Frederick Douglass once said that power concedes nothing without a struggle. It never has and it never will. The federal government has sucked away the power for Oregon to achieve and to influence its own destiny. And unless we struggle against that power, unless we go out there and we have a sheriff who is willing to tell the federal officials, if you interfere with our contractors, we'll arrest you, we will never be able to fight and restore the sovereign powers of this state. And the highest duty I could have as an attorney general would be to stand there in front of the Supreme Court and say, look, is there anything left here at all, you fools? Wake up! This is a federal government. We are a sovereign state. We have sovereign powers, and we need to defend them. So I'm not expressing these mild-mannered sentiments about the state to some enthusiasm outside the metropolitan areas, but I need your help, and all the Republican candidates need your help. Get out there and audit these people until their ears bleed, and then send the audits to me so I can send these people up the river. We have a lot of other good candidates, but I tell you what, they aren't going to get elected unless you here in Wasco County can make a heroic effort. It was wonderful to sing this song. It's such a martial song. Loose the fateful lightning of our swift and terrible sword, and get out there and make sure every single Republican ballot is voted, every single Republican ballot is counted, there are no undervotes. We get out there and we get rid of these people, because by God, we are in serious shape. You know, we're going to lose our prosperity. Our prosperity is shot. When we have these fools who run up the $16 trillion deficit, they're going to pay it back one way or another. They'll steal it through inflation. They'll steal it through high taxes. They may even grab the retirement accounts like Argentina. But we can lose our prosperity and we can get it back. But we cannot lose our freedom and get it back. And we are one vote away from losing the First Amendment, one vote away from losing the Second Amendment. We have got to get out there and fight this election season, or the America that we know and love will be gone. So help me.